Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We will be starting soon. While we get started, please let us know where you're joining from. The name, the location, so we know where you're coming from. Wow. Carlos from New York. Winston from Kansas. Great. Okay, we are at the 2-minute mark. Let's get started. Hi, Tim. Hi, Brian. Thank you for joining me on our webinar today.
Thanks, Mitra. Good to be here.
Great, thank you. We are going to get started with our webinar. We have a few folks. We have Carlos from New York. We have Vincent from Kansas. I'm waiting for a few other folks to tell us where they're from. Oh, we have Jesus. Okay. Let's get started. We're at our 3-minute mark. All right. Welcome, everyone, to our webinar of how you can optimize your subscription to Gruntwork and what's beyond. You're all customers of Gruntwork, which is great. So we will get started. Before we get started, here are some quick housekeeping items so that way I can get you all to know what's going on. This is a live broadcast. We are live. This is not pre recorded. Just to let you know, we are live. So if there are any technical hiccups, difficulties, please bear with us. We will do Q&A as we are going through the content. If you come up with some questions, please type them out in the chat so that way we capture your questions. And then we are using a streaming platform, so there could be a 5 to 10-second delay. So if there's some questions that you've asked us, it could be a delay, so please bear with us. And this session is recorded. So we will send you out a recording afterwards along with the slides. So you have that for your purpose. Okay. So with that, what I'm going to do is start with a quick round of introductions. For everyone here, please meet Zach, our CTO at Gruntwork. Zach, if you want to give us a quick round of intro.
Thank you so much, Sumi. As Sumi mentioned, I'm Zach, the Chief Technology Officer here at Gruntwork. My background has been running technology at startups primarily for the past 10, 15 years. My DevOps claim to fame or notable professional experiences, we had a production cluster with 5,000 pods across 2 different regions in Google Kubernetes Engine a few years ago, which was fun to maintain, ran into IP exhaustion issues. I'm sure some of you here are laughing like, you've got 50,000 pod clusters, but at the time it felt like a large challenge. But thrilled to be working with the team at Gruntwork and excited to share our story with you today.
Perfect. Brian, can you introduce yourself? Brian is our solutions architect here. So, Brian, can you give us a few words?
Sure. I'm Brian Torres. I'm the DevOps solutions architect at Gruntwork. Actually started out at a company that was Gruntwork's first customer before eventually joining the team. So I've seen both sides of this coin. I've been in DevOps for clean over a decade with experience ranging from building out Wealthfront's cash account and their network and security implementation, and managing a petascale storage cluster for a company called Ignite back when petascale was considered impressive. But yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. For everyone, I'm Sumi or Sumitra. I am the principal customer success manager at Gruntwork. I'm brand new. I come from a DevOps domain. I've been at previous companies that have done DevOps. I'm really, really excited to be here and being part of this webinar here. So, quickly jumping into the agenda for the webinar today to give you an idea of what's coming through. So we'll talk quickly about Gruntwork, where did we come from, a little bit of a history from us. We will do a little bit of pro tips with Brian and Zach, and then we will do a little bit of what's beyond Gruntwork, what's available for you all, and then we will jump into Q&A. Sound good? All right. Jumping into Zach, tell me more about the Gruntwork story. Like, tell us more. Like, what do you know about Gruntwork?
Yeah, thanks, Sumi. So for those of you who haven't heard the story, Gruntwork is about a 10-year-old company. And the genesis of our largest project, TerraGrunt, which was around the early days of the company, was at the time Terraform was brand new. And there's a lot of excitement around the tool. But for those of you who've been around a while, you might remember Terraform did not come with any state locking features. And so if you had more than one developer trying to use Terraform at the same time, you ran into contention over that lock file, and all kinds of either hilarity or damage could be done, I guess, depending on your perspective. And so Jim, the co-founder of Gruntwork, saw this happening in the market and said, we can fix that. And so was TerraGrunt born. Right? TerraGrunt's initial feature was simply locking around the state file. And so the idea is, we saw a problem in the world. How can we make DevOps better? Saw an opportunity to use technology to enhance the state of the world, and we delivered that to the world. And that is essentially the ethos of Gruntwork for the past decade, right? Identifying ways to make DevOps better with technology and tooling to help teams do it fast and right. And we'll head into the next slide. Of course, it's been 10 years since the initial launch of TerraGrunt and the founding of the company, and we've done a few things in between. Some notable things many of you may have seen. Terraform Up and Running, our first book, was published in 2017. So I guess we're celebrating, an 8 or a 9-year anniversary of that book being published. Also, if you haven't seen, Jim wrote a follow-on book called The Fundamentals of DevOps and Software Delivery, which was published by O'Reilly, I think just 2-3 months ago. There is a free version of that book available on our website, gruntwork.io, if you want to get a preview therein. And of course, many of you, I'm sure, are waiting for is the official TerraGrunt 1.0 release. I'm happy to announce, if we haven't said it publicly already, that we are aiming to have that live before the end of the year. So with any luck, you'll get a Gruntwork Christmas present under the tree of 1.0 version of TerraGrunt. I believe all of the promises on the roadmap to 1.0 have been delivered except for 2 as generally available. And so we're hard at work stabilizing those, working through the remaining breaking changes, and we'll have that published. In addition to, of course, the TerraGrunt and the books, we've been hard at work on our ISC library. So we'll jump into that next slide now. As you can see, we've developed a couple of modules to help you deploy infrastructure into AWS. As this snapshot shows, the library has grown and grown and grown over the years. As a reminder, everything in this library comes with both examples, documentation, and tests. So every single time we push a change to one of these modules, we spin up real infrastructure in the real world. We have an internal infrastructure account called Nuclear Wasteland, where all those tests get spun up and then hopefully spun down as we test out the library. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Brian, who's going to help with or talk through some of the pro tips on how to use the infrastructure as code library.
That was a lot of libraries, though. I feel like My eyes cannot comprehend everything that I see.
Yeah, literally, it's really small. All right. So first, even before the library, we want you to be successful with the library, and we're here to help. There's no level 1 support. There's no like triage peons that will take your ticket and ask you a bunch of questions that don't matter just to like escalate it. It just goes directly to someone that usually knows what they're talking about. Feature requests are welcome. We want you to tell us what you want the module to do. If there's a gap, if there's missing functionality, maybe there's some new, provider option, to a particular resource and it's just missing because we haven't seen it yet. Let us know. If you feel like you need to fork the module to do what you need to do, even if you are really determined to fork, we still want to hear about it so that we can maybe fill the gap. All right, now for something a little more interesting. First, we wanted to share some pro tips, and as one of the people frontlining support, there are some mistakes that I see on a recurrent basis, and that is the misuse of these dependency blocks, or even just not using a dependency block when you should be using one. You should be using a dependency block to derive any information from a resource that already exists. This is almost always universally true. And the most frequent mistake I see is someone hard coding an ARN. Maybe you have like a shared account with some KMS keys in it and you're using SOPs decryption, and you just have like a giant pile of locals with an enumeration of all of these ARNs. Kind of a mistake. I wish you would just make like a KMS key module and use the outputs. Let's also look at the next slide. Along with dependency blocks, they could be using dependencies across accounts. And one of the things that enables this is this auth provider command, which I'll show you in just a second. Auth provider command is literally my favorite feature in all of TerraGrunt, and it's kind of bookmarked. I show it off whenever I have a chance because it gives you this script you can feed into TerraGrunt to figure out your credentials dynamically. Now, in the olden days, like pre-AWS Provider 6.0, which is going to change things, we haven't changed yet, if you wanted to do any multiple account concern, you would create 2 instances of your provider, alias both of them, and then kind of juggle which provider you're feeding to which resource so you can perform some form of cross-account handshake. And you just don't need to do that. So let's go to a screen share where I can show off a demo. So here we have one of our demo environments where this is our default structure. Every folder at the top level here represents an account, except for anything with an underscore or dot folders. Those don't count. All of these are accounts. And I have here, under the shared account, some VPC I'm creating, which the contents of which really don't matter. I'm going to be making a VPC RAM share. Under the shared account still, I want to make this RAM share, which I'm referencing as kind of this tiny module here under the current working directory. You can see here that the input is the RAM principal and the source. It's a really simple module. It's literally just making the share itself, associating the VPC, and like sending out that share. On the other end, in this cross-account tests account, we're accepting that RAM share. Module is also very tiny. It's a single resource, but it's literally saying accept the RAM share. And that just kind of works. Like, note the dependency structure here. We have a VPC as a dependency here, and then we have the RAM share as a dependency in some other account, right? I just made a simple PR that, like, I applied this earlier just to make sure it works and make sure the demo gods are, on my side here. But simple change. And the way we feed this in our pipelines product is we specify this TerraGrunt auth provider command envar, which specifies pipelines itself as its auth provider command. Pipelines will figure out what directory you're in, figure out what account that directory maps to, and then give you ephemeral credentials just for that. And you can find out more about this auth provider command in these docs, where it gives examples of how to put it together and the output format. Well, that's enough screen sharing for now. We'll go back to slides. And let's go to the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I just showed you pipelines and this cross-account access model. One of these best practices that we try to espouse is like IAC is scary because it needs access to go in and create and or destroy a bunch of resources effectively everywhere you want to manage. And again, in the olden days, you would create a role and it would have mega god mode across your entire organization, or you would be able to assume roles in every account, which is effectively the same thing. We think that's a little too scary. So we attempt to make it so that you can assume these roles dynamically and into each account, and each account is only concerned with that one account. You no longer have this lateral movement you're able to perform with a singular role. Also, which I can, hey Tim, can you put me back on the screen share real quick? One of the cool parts about our pipelines product is this idea of when you make a change, it will give you a plan, and you're able to see the reviewers here. You can see the plan, someone can approve it, you merge it, and you can see the apply all in one spot. And if we can go back to the slide, one of the most important parts of checking in all of your work is this compliance and audit trail that we leave behind for you. So that's that's frequently people's first problem they're trying to solve when starting down the path of Terraform, which is they have some compliance requirement. They have to show that a change is happening and that it was approved, and there's some code that reflects it so that auditors can come in and make sure that nothing untoward is happening. So with this, you get the full trail of a change is going to happen. Someone approved it. The change actually happened. And let's go to the next slide.
You got it.
All right. I think we can hand this over to Zach, who will tell us more about what these tools and these tools do on day 2.
Thank you, Brian. So as Brian mentioned, hopefully you're not feeling too intimidated by the lengthy list of best practices that Gruntwork recommends. And I'm here to relieve some of your anxiety and let you know that, Gruntwork has, of course, bundled solutions to help you implement many of these best practices. So Brian spoke quite a bit, and as you can see at the top of the slide, Gruntwork Pipelines solves a handful of these best practices simply out of the box, right? By using a tool like Pipelines, you get temporary tokens are generated to access the cloud for only the things that particular team or account is able to access, therefore implementing least privilege and limiting the blast radius of any kind of change. Of course, Pipelines is a CI/CD solution that is highly configurable out of the box. We have our own HCL language to allow you to describe your code base, where the accounts live, different kinds of environments, the authentication required for all those different kinds of accounts. We highly encourage all of our customers to configure their source code management platforms to require verified commits. So everything will be signed. And as a result, if you have a signed commit, which kicks off a signed pipeline, which uses tagged session credentials, then by default, every infrastructure change using the native logging features of your cloud, predominantly AWS, you will see the name of the session and the name of the author on every infrastructure as code API call to the cloud, right? So if there's ever a question of how did this bucket come to be, or how was this thing deleted, by default, there's always a trail of exactly what pipeline run, what CI/CD run kicked off that change, who is the author of that change, and of course, you can tie that back directly to the actual commit and the signed author of that commit. We also have an extension of pipelines available called Pipelines Drift Detection. We're very clever with our naming schemes, as you can tell, which can be run on a periodic basis to detect and mitigate drift. And many of you are also familiar with Gruntwork Patcher, a tool to scan IAC code repositories and propose pull requests to keep them up to date. And we'll head over to the next slide from here. So this is sort of the day 2 best practices. So you've adopted IAC, and now you want all of this stuff. You have to manage your IAC to make it work at scale. And so we've been building these products, and it sort of dawned on us that customers are using them individually to solve these problems. And our most successful customers are adopting them all as sort of a complete day two solution. And so I'm really excited to announce that we have a new bundling of these products called TerraGrunt Scale that we're offering, which is just these 3 cloud agnostic products to help with sort of day two infrastructure as code problems. You'll see TerraGrunt Scale on TerraGrunt's website and Gruntwork's website over the coming weeks. And we hope that it's a helpful way to get teams going from day one. We do have some, day one startup style customers, all the way up through Fortune 500, multiple thousands of engineers scale using these products. So we've gotten feedback from the market and been iterating to make sure that these tools do work both at small and the largest of scales. These tools, though, as I mentioned, are generally cloud agnostic. They're for general infrastructure as code problems. Most of our customers, by virtue of having an experience with library, are working with AWS. And so in addition to general IAC best practices, we've heard of some challenges that are specific to AWS. So let's head over to the next slide and talk about some AWS specific challenges. As companies grow, there's natural push both from AWS and from the market in general to move towards a multi-account deployment. And in a multi-account environment, you have a handful of unique challenges. The first one that we hear most often is it's frustrating and difficult to use Control Tower to set up a landing zone. If you've ever tried to use it, you've probably run into spurious errors. It seems like in general, when you try and do stuff with AWS, a couple seconds, maybe a minute is sort of the norm for spinning up a bucket or a load balancer. But Control Tower throws those SLAs out the window, right? 20 minutes, 30 minutes for an action to take place is the norm when interfacing with Control Tower, which for developers who've tried themselves to set it up is not, let's say, the fastest developer experience. Of course, once you've got your Control Tower set up, you then have to adopt it into infrastructure as code, which is now multiple accounts, different credentials. You have to set up SSO. It's a complicated endeavor. And then you have to define your service control policies and apply them consistently across the accounts. And then to organize all of this across multiple teams. So each of these challenges on their own, we've seen customers run into in the real world. And I'm a bit of a broken record at this point. When Gruntwork sees a problem in the world, we create tools to try and fix it in DevOps. And so we'll head over to the next slide where nobody will be surprised. We have a specific offering to solve these pain points on AWS that we call the Gruntwork AWS Accelerator. The accelerator includes day one setup to get your landing zone and Control Tower set up and running. We have got a detailed checklist so we know exactly what order to do exactly what operations in Control Tower to avoid ever hitting any of those errors that take 45 minutes to loop through. So hopefully you get it right on the first go. We have templates that we can render to immediately adopt all of those accounts into infrastructure as code. And of course, it comes with TerraGrunt Scale, so you get a pipeline, your detection and patching on top of that infrastructure you've just created. And finally, we have an account factory module, so you can create new AWS accounts in an automatic way. And I want to underscore the power of having a consistent way to vend new accounts, right? So somewhere within your organization, somebody requests a new account. That account can go to a platform team that has access to this account factory product, generate the new account, which is the same way as all the other ones have been generated, which takes as long as AWS takes, anywhere from, say, half an hour to 45 minutes, and then apply standard configurations to all of those accounts without lifting a finger. So if you have company policies related to configuring AWS config or CloudWatch or adopting into shared VPCs or transit gateways, or doing things like sending and accepting invitations to Macie, GuardDuty, Security Hub, all of these sophisticated AWS tools, that can be troublesome to do by hand. But Account Factory enables you to automate and set a standard for all of those things. At scale, if you're vending accounts for other teams, we also have the ability, of course, to create brand new repositories that are already integrated with the account which was just created. And so if some application team needs a new account, they push the button, a few minutes later, they get a whole repository that's provisioned with least privilege, access control set up, so that team has access to just that account and just the kinds of resources that the team has requested. So all of this together, again, we've seen success at startup scale all the way up through Fortune 500, where anywhere from 2 or 3 engineers are operating in the system up through the thousands. And we call all of that the AWS Accelerator. And we'll go from there into our next slide, which is the future at Gruntwork. So in general, we think of the world nowadays in terms of three general buckets in DevOps. We have velocity, governance, and maintainability. And we have products and items on our roadmap into each of those three categories. First, in velocity, we have improvements coming to TerraGrunt, specifically TerraGrunt Catalog, to help it function as a more powerful in-house developer platform, specifically for platform teams. The idea is we want to empower teams to build their own internal catalogs, which can then be used by platform teams, app development teams, so on and so forth, and to create tools around that. We have AI modules coming for Azure's OpenAI, AWS SageMaker, and more. It's not mentioned on this slide, but I'll mention verbally. We also have on our 2026 roadmap additional AI capabilities and AI features. So stay tuned for new AI products from Gruntwork if that's something you're looking for. We, on the governance side of things, Pipelines is the primary candidate to enforce governance. And so we have cost estimation, security scanning, and policy enforcement, in addition to sort of out-of-the-box standards or code practices to meet common certifications. I think the ones we're targeting, as mentioned on the slide, would be ISO 27001, SOC 2, and high trust certifications. And finally, on the maintainability front, Gruntwork Patcher is our main maintainability thrust. And with that, we have improvements coming down the pipe to enable teams to more surgically deploy patches throughout their estate. And with that, actually, sorry, one more slide. On the open source slide, I'll mention that Gruntwork, of course, we are contributors to and believers in OpenTofu. You can head to the next slide, 10. We have full-time staff that are actively working on the project. We collaborate with Scalar and Zero, Spacelift, and other companies to work on that project. And as part of that, we have a great relationship with all of those developers. And obviously, we are the maintainers of TerraGrunt. And so by virtue of just those capabilities, we offer an enterprise support package as well. So if you're looking for best practice guidance, troubleshooting tips, or prioritized fixes, or even feature requests on either of those platforms, we're of course happy to help. Feel free to reach out to support and we'll see where we can go from there. And now I will hand it back over to Sumi.
Thank you, Zach. Wow, that was a lot of information, right? I mean, we talked about where we started, any kind of pro tips of what you can do, how you can do things that Brian's seen. And then we talked about the future, TerraGrunt scale. I'm really excited about it. So let's quickly do a quick recap of what we talked about, right? We talked about library or dependency blocks, all of the mock outputs you can get, things like that. Then we talked about day 2 with IAC, right? How to use the robust CI/CD pipeline, or how do you do change, drift management, code maintenance, all of those stuff, right? Then we talked about AWS. Landing zone with control tower. When I started, I tried this. Trust me, this took me 2 days to even get to the setup part. So it was hard. So it definitely is something that we can help you with. We have a playbook for it, which would be great for you to get started. And of course, a Gruntwork way of looking at governance, velocity, maintenance, right? Now, if you've got questions on support, you're welcome to reach out to our support team, get our enterprise support team involved. Then, of course, talk about, TerraGrunt scale. Reach out to us. We're happy to give you more information. Then we will have more roadmap items coming out. Right now, we've given you a preview of what looks, but stay tuned. Watch out for our, our community magazines that come out. Watch out for those. Now, here is a quick wrap up, right? Do not hesitate to reach out to support. We are here to help you. Our team is here to support you. Any questions, any concerns, to reach out. Join our TerraGrunt Discord channel. That's our community. You can lean on other grunts and ask questions, ask the community, things like that. Book a 30-minute strategic call with us, find out what to do, how to do. I'm thinking about this. What can I do? Where can I go? Ask us about that. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll send out a quick survey. Please let us know how we did. Any future topics that you would like us to cover? Where do you want us to hone in on? If you'd like a working session, things like that, let us know. Okay? Now, what I'm going to jump to next is a quick Q&A session. I have a question in the chat right now. Zach, Brian, can we use drift detection without Gruntwork pipeline?
Oh, you can let me share my screen. I already pulled up a micro demo for this.
Look at that. Uh,
So the short answer is no. The reason why no is because it relies on the pipeline's product itself to log into all of the accounts and run a plan across the board. So what it does under the hood, logs into every single account, walks to every single unit and runs a plan. If it finds output for a particular plan, it will drop a little token. Token looks like just a timestamp. That way you can still, remediating drift is an infrastructure change, and you don't want to just do it necessarily. Some folks did. When I was at Wealthfront, I actually used this as a compensating control. I would just clobber any changes I found by just automatically applying. Depending on your auditor, they may frown on that. So if you want to affect a change, you still want to make some PR with some approval process, and following all of your other pipelines checks. So we drop this little token file, and this is still counted as a change, and it will apply that unit when merged. You can see here, detected lots of drift all over the place. Some things errored, tells you to go fix them, and you can scroll down and see the plan output. Most of the time, it's just these OIDC fingerprint rotations. But yes, short answer, no. Long answer, still no.
yeah. Another question that I see is, we're currently using someone said that they're using Terraform today. How do they know when it's time to refactor?
So you can use the capabilities of Terra Grunt's run queue without making any changes at all. Like, the only thing you need to do is touch terragrunt.hcl and make an empty terragrunt HCL file, and then bam, Terragrunt works. It's a great tool just for slowly ingesting your infrastructure if you want to get into a higher level orchestration.
Great.
I'd also, just really quickly on that one, we published a blog post Q1 of this year, I think, called How to Manage Large Terraform State Files, or How to Avoid Large Terraform State Files. And I think one of the key benefits of Terragrunt really is the ability to break down a state file into smaller constituent components, which gets you a whole host of benefits, right? And so at some point, you'll have long plan applies, or you'll have concerns about size of blast radius related to the size of your state file. And at that point, it becomes very natural to break things down. The other key factor is if you have state across multiple accounts or different domains inside your company, it's often very beneficial to just logically break things out at that point. And so, if you're starting to feel any of those kinds of problems, we feel that's a good time to start adopting. But then just to represent Yusuf, sorry, Sumi, who's the lead on Terragrunt, it is easier to start your Terragrunt journey when you're small, right? Before you end up with a giant Terralith and a large problem. If you architect correct from day one, which isn't that hard to do, we believe, we're happy to help, of course, then you're set up basically forever, right? And so you avoid that sort of IAC bankruptcy state and having to do that large refactor. I apologize. Back to you, Sumi.
No, it's fine. You're good. Talking about Yusuf, we have Terragrunt office hours. It's a recurring meeting in our community that takes place in the Terragrunt Discord channel. So it's every other week at 9:30 Eastern. So feel free to join in, ask questions. We do have a Discord channel that talks about Terragrunt for you all. Now, there's a question in chat, Brian, just as you were talking, is so instead of running plan, why can't you just scan state file and compare with iLife?
Sure. I mean, in essence, that's effectively what plan does. Why reinvent the wheel? Plan is already looking at your state file and comparing against what exists. So use the underlying like tofu to do that.
Yeah, I'd add on to that. In general, Terragrunt and Gruntwork's philosophy is that OpenTofu is very, very good at mapping your infrastructure as code, like the actual HCL code, to the real world, right? And doing that comparison, generating plans, affecting those changes, right? So you'll notice Terragrunt doesn't have features to directly touch the cloud, right? We use Tofu and the providers therein to actually do that. And so that's sort of a philosophical delineation or delegation of responsibility, so to speak, on that front. And the other is, as a commercial offering, we want to do more than just detect the change. We want to give you the ability to remediate. And so it's very natural that once you've detected a change, you want some way to capture that drift in code, right? So again, it's auditable, you've got your traces, and of course, actually trigger a plan apply to remediate, right? And so it's very natural that the pipeline would be integrated at that point.
Yeah, talking of open tofu, why should they consider open tofu? Like why? Like why open tofu? What's the benefit? Like why go there,
Yeah. Sumi, I know you're very good at keeping track of time, and we've only got, I don't know, a few more minutes left in the webinar, and you
This
asked
is
a
the last
question
question,
that
people.
has an
So if
hour's
anyone
worth
has,
of content.
yes,
But just to give the briefest possible version,
yes.
right, for those who aren't familiar, Terraform 157 is the last fully open source version of Terraform that was released towards the end of 2023. So it's coming up on 2 years old and is officially end of life, doesn't get security patches, so on and so forth. And so from there, you have a choice. You can move into Terraform 1.6 and beyond. So I think we're up to 1.11 now is, I think, the most recent version. Or you can adopt OpenTofu, which is now part of the Linux Foundation and the CNCF and is guaranteed open source forever. And the decision, if you ask me, is very simple and straightforward, right? Do you want to build your infrastructure around a commercial product, which is some small thing in the corner as far as IBM is concerned? IBM now, of course, the owner of HashiCorp and the maintainer of TerraGrunt. Or do you want to build your foundations on an open source tool that's backed by a large community, diverse group of developers, listens to the community, has office hours, and where the roadmap is predominantly driven by what's best for IAC in the world, as opposed to a roadmap that's driven by what's best specifically for Hashi and IBM, right? So no shade, they're doing great work, but that work is primarily geared towards their commercial interest, which is what you would expect them to do, of course. Whereas the open source work is geared towards the general interest in the advancement of IAC, not to mention the licensing concerns themselves, right? If you're using OpenTofu, there's no question that your organization is in the clear as far as the ability to use that license. If you're using the BSL code, you need to think carefully and just be very mindful of what are the limitations and restrictions on that license. Do you need to be paying HashiCorp for for a license to use that code in that scenario, so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, it's always money at the end of the day. Now, thank you, Zach. Thank you, Brian. This was our last question for the day. People who are on the call, if you have more, please feel free to send them on chat. We will respond via email to answer all your questions. There is a document or a blog that we wrote about how to switch to OpenTofu. Selfish plug. If you want to learn more, need our help, reach out to us. We are always here to help you. With that, it's a wrap up. Thank you all for watching our webinar. It was great to have you, Brian and Zach. Thank you for giving me your time. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.